News, a race to identify debris at sea, possible clues in the AirFrance mystery. We're unfolding theories about what went wrong and the heartbroken families left in limbo. With a former National Transportation Safety Board Director, Peter Goelz. He's here in the Situation Room. Peter, the fact that they've seen all this debris in the area, does that say to you, can we determine that there was that it was crashed on impact, or that there was an explosion, or it just broke up in air, the way we're seeing this debris?
Boy, you can't tell yet, but if this debris is from the aircraft, it's a good first step, but it's only a first step because, you know, this plane went down some time ago. There's going to be current and wind movement. You just don't know where the main wreckage is, but you'll want to take a look at this. Is there any singe marks? Are there any sooting? Was there a fire beforehand? There's a lot of information you can get from this.
Because one of the pilots flying around the area said he spotted some fire coming from that area. What, if anything, does that say?
Well, that probably means there was impact on that it crashed into the surface of the ocean, somewhat intact, and exploded. But boy, we're only at the opening steps.
This is right at the beginning. All right, Abby Tatton, come on in here for a moment. Our internet reporter, Abby Tatton's looking at how this debris is being impacted in these extraordinarily deep waters over there in this vast area where they're searching.
It really is a huge area, and we've got Google Ocean here to try and talk you through this field, the debris field and the search area they're now looking at, and the conditions right there on the surface. We're going about 400 miles northeast along the flight path here from this island group. This is where the debris was spotted. The temperature around there right now, we've got from these buoys either side about the low 80 degrees. This is roughly the same off the coast of South Florida right now. The waves about 1 to 3 feet, not too high. It's really the depth that we're talking about right here. Going underwater here with Google Ocean. At some points, it's as low as about 8,000 feet. But a lot of the points we're going to 10, sometimes. Right now, we're about 12,000 feet in depth underneath this area. And that's about 2 miles down or more. Yeah,
but you say, Peter, that technically they could go down 2 miles and try to find those so-called black boxes.
Yes, they can use, remote control vehicles. They can dive down and retrieve them. The question is, can they hear them? And each of the black boxes...
When you say hear them, what does that mean?
Each of the black boxes has a locator device that is activated once it hits water. And it emits a ping on a certain frequency that the rescue, the searchers, they drop listening devices into the ocean. If they hear it, then they go to it.
What does it say to you that there was no Mayday call? There was the pilot or the co-pilot didn't actually communicate with anybody. Mayday, 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 because in all the movies we've seen, that's what they say.
Well, that really is an ominous sign, because it means whatever happened, it happened so quickly that the pilots were not able to radio out, and it probably indicates that it was a catastrophic failure at altitude.
When you say a catastrophic failure of the electrical system, could that alone?
That alone would not be enough. Because the plane has a backup system.
That's what I mean.
You can drop it's a small propeller that comes down underneath the plane that generates electricity. That alone would not be enough to cut off transmission.
What kind of turbulence are we talking about? Because there were reports of other Lufthansa planes, huge planes also, were flying before and after in relatively the same corridor as this plane.
The turbulence was severe, but it was not beyond the capabilities of the plane. At least that's what we know so far. You've got meteorologists looking at the weather carefully to see if there was some phenomena taking place. So far, we haven't seen it.
The other thing I read was that there might have been hail, even at 30 or 40,000 feet. Is that common? Is that normal in a thunderstorm to see hail, which potentially could have caused some destruction?
It's not uncommon to see hail, and usually you can pick it up on your forward-looking radar and you avoid it. There have been a number of cases in which hail has severely damaged, the windscreens of the pilots, of the cockpit, but in this case, that's a reach as well, I'm afraid.
All right, we're going to have you back in a few moments. There's more to talk about the reliability of this A330, but stand by. We're going to be getting back to you. Much more on this story coming up. Let's check in with Jack Cafferty, though, right now for the Cafferty File. Jack.
He's terrific.
Yeah, he is.
He speaks in sentences that people like me can understand about very complex issues. I enjoy listening to him.
Yeah, that's why he's coming back, too.
Well, that makes sense.
I want to bring back Peter Goelz, a former director of the National Transportation Safety Board. It sounds to the layperson like me pretty ominous, pretty scary.
Well, the airworthiness directives are really the backbone of the safety system. They're issued on a regular basis, and they're issued by the departments that oversee the air carriers. And the manufacturers really respond quickly to them. In this case, you've got a procedure that will countermand this erroneous message. What happens is these planes are fly-by-wire.
Which means what?
Which means they are complete. The old planes used to be run by cables, used to control the flaps, the ailerons. These are controlled by electrical impulses along wiring. So there's always been a concern that with the very complex computers, if you've got a glitch in them, how are you and it's a itinerant glitch, how are you going to be able to analyze that if it only happens occasionally?
Can these pilots, are they trained? Because they could be overwhelmed in a situation like this.
Well, that's the question. The question is, if you get a combination of events and you get a pilot that's taken by surprise, are they going to do the wrong thing? Are they going to make the wrong call? And in this case, they're certainly going to look at this airworthiness directive. They haven't figured out what caused this glitch. The plane pitched initially 8 degrees nose down, dropped almost 1,000 feet, then pitched again down far less, about 3 degrees. And each time the pilots arrested the dive.
By doing what?
They took command of the aircraft and pulled the stick back.
Presumably, if the AirFrance A330 had the same problem, the pilots were very experienced in the AirFrance. They would have done exactly the same thing that the Qantas pilots flying the exact same plane did.
Right. But certainly this is going to be a point that the investigators are going to look at. It's going to be one of the early areas of the investigation.
At what point would they, let's say that, obviously we had a horrible tragedy here, and the Brazilian defense minister is now confirming that the debris in the Atlantic Ocean is the wreckage from this AirFrance A330. At what point would they issue a halt to using this plane to investigate, at least for a day or 2 or 3, to make sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be?
I think they're well away from that. There is no indication that this plane is unsafe or is not airworthy. They're going to have some real information and some data that would indicate that a grounding is necessary, and I don't think we're anywhere near that yet.
Is it safe for viewers out there who may be getting ready to fly on an Airbus A330 right now? Is it safe for them to go on this plane?
Absolutely. And if it wasn't safe, the FAA and the corresponding government agencies would be quick to put a plane down. They don't hesitate when they think there's safety at stake.
All right, hold on one more minute. Peter Goelz, former director of the NTSB, is still here. Peter, it would take an enormous amount to break off a wing from a plane, especially a plane that's relatively new. It's only a few years old with state-of-the-art equipment.
Absolutely. These static tests, which they were showing the tape of, these really put an enormous amount of pressure on a plane, far beyond anything. We're
showing it, the video to our viewers once again right now.
Far beyond anything that you would encounter.
The tropical wave that was supposedly was in the area, that's not enough to do any damage.
Yeah, I mean, it'll give you a good rattling, but it's not going to break a wing off.
Because sometimes you're flying at, let's say, 39 or 40,000 feet on a big jumbo jet, and the next thing you know, you're going through some turbulence, and sometimes you feel the plane actually drop.
That's right.
I mean, it's happened to me. I was on Air Force One a few years ago with the President of the United States, and we dropped pretty quickly, but then, of course, everything's smoothed out.
It exaggerates, the feelings are exaggerated inside the plane. We would investigate upsets, particularly when we were looking at the 737, and pilots would say, we were at 45 degrees, and we'd pull the flight data recorder, and they were at about 25 degrees. But the surprise, you're not ready for it, it comes, and you say, holy cow, what was it? Oftentimes, it's not as severe as you think.
And this explains why you should be wearing a seatbelt, even when they take off the fasten seatbelt sign.
Wear it all the time when you're not in the restroom. It absolutely is a key safety item.
Because you never know when that turbulence is going to start, and you could be just simply thrown right off your seat.
Absolutely. Clear air turbulence is a real threat.
Bottom line, right now, the Airbus A330 should not be grounded. It's still safe to fly.
Absolutely. There is no question that it's a safe aircraft. But the investigators are looking at this, the regulators are looking at it. If there's evidence that indicates action has to be taken, they won't hesitate.
Thanks very much, Peter. Good work.
Thank you.